Hey guys. Alright, so this is going to be a little bit of a different video. Um, I ended up getting a flat tire on my Nocto electric bicycle. Unfortunately, it had to be the back wheel, the bed tire. So I've never changed out a tube on an electric bicycle before. Obviously, a front one's way easier. So I had to do trial and error. I did look up YouTube videos, and unfortunately, some of them were a couple of them were helpful, but they didn't go into detail, the little secrets. Um, I'm going to point out what you got to do, and hopefully it helps. There are little tiny little details, and you got to do things a certain way. So I'm going to show you now. As you can see here, the Nacto bike. Oh, that's a little blurry, isn't it? Now, what I noticed I had to do first was you got to disconnect. Of course, you got to disconnect the brake, and you also have to disconnect that nut right there. All that does is just hold it to that metal piece. Now I took this off. I took this completely off, and I loosened this one about to the edge of the bolt there, right there. And I apologize that it's so blurry. You of course disconnect your throttle there. You're gonna loosen that up. Now, also, this is going to come off too, because at first, originally, I thought that bolt there. I thought that this was gonna hold the derailleur to the frame, and I wouldn't have to mess with it. It just pops right off. But that is not the case. You do have to take that. Well, that is probably going to come off along with the wheel anyway. So, but always make sure when you go to put it back on that you have that. When you put it back on, you have that nut, that bolt there has to go back on exactly that way. Now you're probably going to fight that a little bit because when you go to take the wheel off, you got to pull this back. Now to the more complex part. After you take this bolt off, or you take this nut off, take these screws out, which have a nut on the other side. So you're going to need a screwdriver and a crescent wrench. You're going to take that bolt off. Now, let's see. Okay, now here's the part that I did not know. When I took the bolts off, I took everything off, disconnected everything. I thought I was ready to pull it off. But that is not the case. It wouldn't budge, wouldn't come off. I sat there and just beat my brains over it to see what could possibly be holding it. Can't see him there, um, but I was looking back here, trying to see what's going on. Nothing was holding it. Now, what I discovered, and you're probably gonna be like, John, I could have told you that. Notice how this is not perfectly round. See if I can get a better shot of that there. As you can see, there's a flat part there and a flat part on the other side. Now this, if you take, all I did is I took a pair of pliers or something. Just a regular pair of pliers, needle nose pliers. And you can turn that. You could turn that to where it'll line up with your slot, which is going to be pointed outwards instead of downward like a regular bicycle. And when you do that, everything should come right off. So after I figured that out, slapped my forehead, got the tube changed, not a problem. Now I aired it up before I put it back on because it's a caliper brake. It's not a pad brake or whatever you call it. And I just made sure the tires stayed aired up so I didn't have to go through that nightmare again. And now putting it back on, I brought it up. I didn't put the I put the nut back on there after putting the kickstand, slid right back on, and then before I tightened anything, I put that nut back on because you have to. You're not going to be able to turn it with the kickstand on there or tightened. Get that on there nice and tight, and then you put these on. Now this is before you tighten the wheel or anything. That way you can move it, you can adjust it, make sure it's centered. Get these guys back on, get that back on. Now I thought I wasn't going to know the position, I was going to forget what position this was, but everything's already lined up. You just have to put the screws back on, and it'll automatically go back to the way it was. Not only that, but you can see the marks that the screws made where they were. So once you get those lined back up where they go, this is going to be automatically where it needs to be. Then I put this nut back on along with the kickstand and lined everything up, tightened that nut, and then I came over here. I put this back on along with that nut first, and got this into the position it's supposed to be in, and then I tightened this nut up, and then I plugged it back in. So it took a little trial and error, but I was able to do it. Now I know how to do it. See, I was afraid that when I put it all together, or when I go to take everything apart, I didn't want anything to come off that was spring loaded, and then of course I wouldn't be able to get the spring back on and things like that. I've been through that before, not with this, not with a bicycle, but with like a BB gun. I tried to take apart a BB gun. Springs flew out everywhere. I had to throw it away. There's no way I was getting all those springs back in there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you know anybody, there's a plastic piece. If you know anybody with that has a bike shop or maybe even a 3D printer, where the battery plugs in right here, right in this area. Probably can't see very well. So there's a couple of prongs on the inside here where the battery attaches, and in between holding those prongs is a little square plastic piece. Now mine broke, so I was only able the way I was able to plug it in is I had to hold it up just enough to where I can get needle nose pliers right up in there, all up in there, Morty. And so it disconnects right here, and then the battery actually sits about right there. If you know anybody that might have a replacement little square, it's probably like an inch by 2 inches. That would be absolutely phenomenal. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to do that same thing over and over. If that same technique over and over every time I want to unplug it or plug it back in, and I don't want to do that. So it's plugged in. I don't mess with it. It's working. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So yeah, if you know anybody with an electric bike, might have a spare parts, maybe works with electric bikes and has spare parts, just give me a shout out in the comment section, and that would really, really help out a lot. And maybe the person could teach me other secrets, tips, and tricks. So that's pretty much going to be about it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next one. But it's going to be more. It's going to be exploring. I just wanted to post this because I was unable. There was no video that told me about the they call it the shaft, whatever you want to call that thing, the shaft where you had to turn it with a pair of pliers. Um, how a cylinder shaped object gets caught in a slot hole. That I will never, I'll probably never figure that out. But I'm sure I didn't take the time to look at how that works or anything. I just after I figured it out, I was like, okay, cool. Now it was you almost need three hands in order to do that, but you don't have to. You might bust a knuckle, you might not. You might pinch yourself, you might not. Um, just be aware of those precautions. And I don't wear gloves. I mean, I just cleaned my hands, but they were pretty much black by the time I got done with all this. And yep. All right. See you in the next one.